So you have this modern contrast that hookup culture and technology has created, where you have this really alien pairing of alpha widows and beta bobs, right? So this is like around 30. She's had her peak power in dating culture. She wants to settle down. She goes for the stable guy, the nice guy at about 30. Well, when she's around 30, he may be 30, 35, something like that. But you now have this huge power differential, right? So the reality of the alpha widow is she may have more bodies than him than by the time she's 21, by the time he's like 30. you know that's the experiential difference. So she's very used to understanding, controlling men, getting them to do what she wants to do. She has experienced a variety of men, and the masculine spectrum. But there's been a lot of discards, for whatever reason. Like, women tend to punch above their weight class as far as looks, as far as and income, and so the likelihood that they'll get discarded is higher because of what's called hypergamy. So they're competing for the same high status man. They can't all get him, and so you get a lot of rejection. There's a saying: it's easy to have a man, but it's hard to keep him. And she's likely gone through several of these. So, and he may not understand women as well, right? Because of the modern dating environment, about 80% of men are ignored, and are highly inexperienced. And what has he done to compensate for that? Whether that just be general inexperience, whether that be bad habits like, whatever it is, pornography, video games, sports, whatever coping mechanisms you're doing when you're not in a relationship, when you're not raising a family, going through the normal cycle of human existence and development. And so, you can have wide gaps. So he's had more time in isolation. She may just be bouncing from relationship to relationship, never making it past the honeymoon phase. So now you have this clash of characters, right? So the problem on his end is what's called Franken-Chad, right? So what I've coined that term. The Franken-Chad is the combination of all the men that she's been with, and you now have to outcompete the best attributes of all those men. 20, 30 bodies in modern women. And from an inexperienced perspective, right? He just may be working, putting work in, etc. There's not that emotional chemistry of having a lot of women understanding the give and take of the feminine. How can he really, compete with the Franken-Chad, right? So if she's unconscious of that, she will project this expectation onto him. And so you need to be conscious of that. You can't be conscious of, that, again, impossible, unattainable expectations. The beta bobs, on the other hand, may not understand female chemistry, right? So you may not understand emotional dispositions, like fundamentally emotional dispositions, may not understand fundamental genetic dispositions of women, what their base desires are, and how to support her feminine, and not only her expression, which actually in modern movie may not be comfortable even in their feminine expression because it's looked down upon as shut down by pop culture, and but it's not only like enabling or supporting, I guess, that expression, but also the integration of her masculinity. So how to help a feminine integrate a mature masculine. So like he's just not used to that dance, and he may not be competent at doing that. And there can be a buildup of contempt on both parts, really. Like, he's not happy about her body count. He's not happy being settled for, right? And she's not happy. In contrast to Frank and Chad with Beta Bob, right? So, she thinks she always deserves better, right? The question is, as far as natural development goes, like, that is a non-starter of human development. I mean, that may be a feminine disposition because your value is kind of like given to you from a strictly feminine perspective. From a human perspective, the value is in the doing, right? Your growth is happiness. And to expect and just say that, okay, I'm only happy according to what my man gives to me, that can be that's a non-starter developmentally. Why? That's a princess mentality. And you have to be able to surrender Frank and Chad, really. That is the case because he doesn't exist, right? And he may actually, the 1% man does exist, but he's not dating you. Like that is the reality. Like, the amount of perceptual distortion and the value that she brings to the table, like, I deserve a king. Do you? Who are you? Are you living in your mom's basement with your child, or your dad's basement? I mean, are you entitled to the absolute kingdom based on your actual value, based on what you bring to the table? So that's and that's what he's looking at, right? So he's had to fight and work for everything he has, and he can provide the best he can, and that's his resentment, right? So he is saying, well, no matter what I do, you're unhappy, so what's the point of doing anything, right? Who cares? And she's saying, I always deserve better. I'm mad at you because you are not my first choice. And I mean, that's the middle portion of modern day relationships, right? And I mean, at the top levels, you have different chemistries, different dynamics. But I said that the meaty chunk of a lot of modern relationships is this dynamic, and good luck reconciling it. It is a massive challenge because these developmental paths have bifurcated massively, right? The normal cycles of co-development of the opposite sex have been extremely disruptive, and the chemistry, the modern day chemistry between men and women is a power dynamic that has never been seen in human history. How it's going to resolve? So let's talk about this, because there's extreme developmental bifurcation, but the reality is the externality. So the external living situation is one of compounding pressure, right? So everybody's gas and electricity bills and grocery bills doubled this year, right? People aren't making any more money. And that's just the opening blow, right? We had a global pandemic. The more and more pressure placed on these, you're going to get wild bifurcations of development. So the more pressure, the more men and women recognize that we are stronger in synergy, right? When we're connected and using our, like, working as one, as an energetic one, against a common enemy, which is the externality, right? She, for the most part, okay, so the modern alpha, white, or feminine is unaware of the compounding pressure of that is reality, right? The train wreck, like, femininity is very moment by moment, right? But masculine intelligence is contextual. So we see a compounding freight train over the next decade. She's not necessarily aware of that. You know, because her emotional disposition, she could be thinking that, well, you know, she'd be brainwashed by pop culture, right? She could be living in a Sex and the City world where, you know, we're just going to have our flings and have our girlfriends and blah, 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 and have our consumption culture and nonsense. And she'd be wrapped up in the bread and circuses of the moment-by-moment reality. Once that pressure becomes turned up enough, there's a natural convergence of it. And then, you know, maybe the next generation is more traditional after that happens. Because, you know, a lot of times... So the alpha widows can get so disappointed and not procreate and, you know, stop the dysfunction right there, right? The beta bobs, they can just, you know, have their porn, have their entry level job, and have their video games and not procreate. And then the next generation is just going to be the only people that procreate are the people that are have that traditional chemistry. Or say the pressure gets turned up so hard that the dysfunctional wide bifurcation masculine and feminine are forced to come together, converge, and synergize, and now you have a stable family. So, you know, the next generation is probably going to be very, very different, very much more traditional. But for now, you have this this wild bifurcation. And it's kind of a function of a society in decadent decline. I mean, this is like Roman times decadent decline. It's totally absurd. And it is what it is. And so, yeah, expectations have to be managed. You know, the capacity, like, he really needs to build a lot of new patterns, right? So he has to understand feminine chemistry. She has to allow him to understand that, right? Like, recognize that, hey, he's inexperienced, but I'm overexperienced, right? like, you know, you cannot be delusional about your own value you bring to the table as far as a baseline give and take. Impossible expectations means dysfunctional relationships. You know, you have to have the capacity to self-reflect, and that's hard to do. And you have to have the capacity to look for beyond surface chemistry, right? So beyond the honeymoon phase, there's deep synergy, deep chemistry, like the kind of relationship that you have, like. With a father over a lifetime, over decades, that should be something of a mirror in your masculine relationship, but on a partner level. So from parent to partner, it's one is caring, one is a direct kind of dance with the masculine evolution, and a lot of times that the alpha widows don't see the beta bobs as worthy of developing um, deep synergy with and pursuing that with because she thinks she deserved better, so well, might as well be alone and live with my cats.